What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Gotham Season 5, Episode 4, Ruin. Whew, a lot of stuff going on. First of all, talk about the things that I'm not so sure how I feel about, just because we'll see what they end up doing with it. So first of all, Jeremiah. So they bring him back in this episode, only to have him die. And that doesn't seem quite right. And don't get me wrong, I mean, they could totally do that, and his followers could take up his stead. Like, we've seen, I think, instances before in the show of when Jerome or Jeremiah got followers, it didn't matter whether they died or not because their legacy lived on through the people that worshiped them, basically. However, to get Cameron Monaghan back for only one episode and then to just kill him off does seem like a little bit of a waste, because he's probably my favorite actor on the show. If not him, then it's obviously Robin Lord Taylor. But those two are my two favorites to watch on this show. And you've killed off Cameron Monaghan's character now. So either they're going to somehow find a way to say, no, he's actually still alive, or, I don't know, another brother of Jerome and Jeremiah is out there and Cameron Monaghan's going to play him as well. I don't know. I would just be very disappointed if we don't see either Jerome or Jeremiah again on the show. Especially because I thought he was honestly going to be kind of the big villain for this season. I mean, he's kind of what set everything in motion for all of this, working alongside Ra's al Ghul. So, kind of thought he was going to be much more involved and much bigger threat. So, for Selena to just sort of take him out in one episode that he shows up in, I don't know. I hope that's not the case. But we'll see what they do with it. And then the other thing is Jim and Barbara hooking up. Like I said in the last review, I knew that they were going to make Barbara and Jim basically be connected again, because just with the mindset, something's in my eye, ow, just with the mindset that Jim's going to name his daughter after Barbara, you would think, okay, well, she's got to somehow mean a little bit more to him than where she was at the beginning of the season. Yes, they were past lovers, engaged. Were they engaged or were they married? God, season 1 seems like so long ago. I don't even remember. But they were obviously very close. To this point, at the beginning of this season, obviously they're not the same. They're not... If she had died at the beginning of the season, he would not have named his daughter after her. So I knew they were probably going to find a way to redeem her, or at least connect them more, where he does start to care about her, and then she ends up dying, and then he names his daughter after her. But for them to actually hook up, I don't really see that. For Barbara, I always felt like her little flirtatious remarks towards Jim were more a way to needle at him, more of a way to just sort of poke and prod at his feelings, because she knows he used to care so much for her and he feels like he failed her because she turned into this crazy person. And so I felt like it was her way of being like, oh no, I'm still that same girl, you just didn't see this side of me. I always felt it was a little bit more trying to egg him on rather than she actually still liked him. And for Jim, I get he's kind of in a dark place right now, so maybe this is more just out of, screw it. Like, everything's going wrong, so why not? But I don't know. I don't know where they're taking this. I was not expecting... Again, when I thought they were going to be more connected, I thought it just meant they were going to start to work together and maybe start to find maybe a little bit of that connection they had in the first season, but I was not expecting to just jump straight to, oh, they're making out. Okay, well, there's that. So yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that one yet. But everything else, though, really, really fun. I had a lot of fun with this episode. Zaz showing up again was fantastic. I've always liked Zaz on this show, because the only other depiction of Victor Zaz that I've seen before is in the Arkham games. And his delivery in the Arkham games, or his character, is much more just like, I'm psychotic. Don't come near me or I'm going to cut myself in my skin. This one is just, I don't know, he's just so casually psychopathic. Or psychotic, whatever the word is. It's just something about the way he's like, hey, I think I'm good up here. It's like, Zaz? Oh, hey, guys. And starts shooting at him. It's just absolutely perfect. Oh, man, I love this guy. And I'm sad that he's probably not going to be on the show probably for the rest of the season, because we're probably going to focus elsewhere. So Zaz will not likely be involved. At least maybe at the end he will, but not right now for sure. But yeah, so much of his dialogue, though, is just really funny. Penguin as well, kind of trying to take him down. more for his personal vendetta because Zaz turned against him. But he tries to basically camouflage it as no, this is for the people. The people deserve justice, and Jim's trying to protect their killer. And yeah, I do think that side of things has gotten really interesting because it was for first few episodes. Obviously, we're only 4 episodes in, so it's not like it's the first half of the season. We're almost there though. But it really felt like we were focusing a lot on Jim trying not to give in to that dark side again, but in a situation where it would actually be a little bit more okay, less frowned upon if he did because of how crazy things have gotten. There's not really any law and order right now, so for him, it would be very easy for him to give in, but of course he doesn't want to because it's his own moral compass. But now we're starting to see that the people are giving in to that dark side a lot more. And it's gotten to the point where they felt like maybe there was some hope. They felt like there was a reason to live. But after the building got blown up, the ones that were left were just like, you know what? Screw it. Screw it. Victor Zsasz, even if he's not responsible, he's a killer. So let's kill him. Let's get rid of him. He's dangerous. And it's kind of an interesting little flip because now we're not so much focused on, well, Jim, don't turn to the dark side. Now we're more focused on, well, Jim's got to help the people turn back to the light. And I will say the scene where Jim was like, what am I going to do? Make another speech? Like, I don't think they're going to listen to me right now. And then Penguin tries to turn it on him and is like, do you have anything to say? And almost just like, I don't know. It was almost like in Jim's mind, like the character's mind, he's like, well, I guess I'll give another speech. And he tried again, but of course this time they weren't listening because they are that far gone. Yeah, so a lot of really fun moments throughout all of this. On top of that, I guess he's more Riddler now than Enigma. But yeah, Riddler's side of the story also became more interesting because at the beginning of this episode, there was a thought in my mind. Did he have something to do with the bombing? Because it really feels like he's been so disconnected from the rest of the story. And then last episode we saw, or 2 episodes ago, we saw that apparently he was responsible for these gangs' death, trying to pin it on Penguin, trying to start a gang war. So that's when the thought crossed my mind, what if this other side of him that he doesn't know what's happening, what if this side of him is essentially trying to get at Penguin by blowing up Penguin and all of his people? And yeah, that ended up being what happened. So still don't know what this other side of him, what it is, whether it's another personality, whether it's Ed, because he keeps saying that Ed is the one doing all this stuff to him, but it doesn't seem like the Ed that we know. So either it's another personality or the Ed we know is like turned darker somehow and he's become much more evil. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on with it. I hope we get some answers. The scene with the old lady at the end verged on a little too ridiculous because I mean we see he starts to piece together what's going on because he starts to, the hits on the head bring back the memories, but then there's a moment where she hits him twice and then she stops. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, look, you said you won't hurt me, right? I promise I won't tell. I'm just like, why would you stop? Like, you had him on the ground, you had him dead to rights, and then you just stop hitting him and you just put it down. You're like, I'm sorry. Who does that? But yeah, I liked kind of it. I will say it was a little frustrating that they really had to focus on like showing us everything while he was getting hit on the head, because once she said, oh, I saw you over there and you had some sort of rocket launcher, and we saw the number on the door, it pieced together in my head. I'm like, so the 1215, it was probably something like apartment, not inmate, something along those lines. And it was probably talking about her, like his other personality was saying we need to get her because she knows too much. But then they have to like go and show the entire flashback where he takes his shot, we see the building blow up, we see him look over and see her looking scared, we see him writing on his hand, everything. I'm just like, what? I mean, most of us are smart enough to piece together that, right? Like, most of us realize. You could have even just had him look at his hand and look at the number, look at the door, and even just have, like, the letters fill in with the new information that he got. You didn't have to show us the entire scene of everything that happened before, but I realize maybe some audience members are probably too dumb to piece that together, so I guess. But yeah, still don't really know how this is going to tie in with Penguin and why he's trying to get at Penguin so bad. But yeah, I mean it's interesting. I like what they're doing with it because they finally brought Nigma into the story now, where he's not just kind of on the outside doing his own thing. Um, and I don't know when they're gonna figure it out. We saw Lucius, grab the RPG box. I will say I didn't talk about this, but Lucius's and Nigma's interactions were really fun too. Just because they have some good back and forth. Just because Lucius has topped him and beaten him before in a game of intellect. So yeah, I liked their interactions. But yeah, maybe this other side of Ed didn't. I don't actually remember in the flashback now if we saw him wearing gloves or not, but maybe there's a chance this other side of him is not as intelligent and maybe did leave fingerprints or something along those lines. But yeah, very interesting. Very excited to see where it goes next, and I think that's about everything. Oh, the final scene between Jim and Zaz as well. I did want to mention. Very good scene. Just because you can't really tell, is Jim basically just bluffing, hoping Zaz doesn't call him on the bluff, or was he really going to just shoot him dead? And that's just how far he's gotten and how done with everything he's gotten. That he's just like, you know what, Zaz, you're sitting here talking a big game. I'm gonna shut you up. I'm sick of listening to you. You don't really know right now, and I feel like they've done a good job of Jim. He's not really making a bunch of bad and evil decisions, but you feel like he's being pushed to making some tougher choices. And it's even to the point now where Harvey's just like, look, don't ever tell me to do that again. So, but I mean, for me, obviously, I don't want Jim to go down the dark side, but God, that scene was just so good. Just Jim's reaction, his delivery as well. Just that, you know what? Maybe I'm just sick of listening to you. Really, really well done. So, but yeah, that's about it for this episode. So on to the next one. See you there. Now, episode 5. Now it says there's no little tilde on the end, so it's pena dura, but I'm pretty sure I remember hearing Eduardo say it was pena dura. So I think IMDb forgot the little tilde on the end. But anyways, very good episode again. I mean, very interesting pieces moving forward, new information gleaned. I will say the only issue I have is I wish they hadn't showed that opening scene now. I think it would have been fun to have, the way it opened this season, don't get me wrong, did get me very hyped up to see Jim and Penguin and Riddler all working together. However, you showed me that they were firing what looked at like the military. So whenever this whole prospect of, well, who's controlling Ed, who's got this chip in his brain, came up, and Eduardo is involved and he's got the army there, I just kind of figured, yeah, that's probably who's in control, right? So I will say you gave a little too big of a hint by showing us that opening scene, because I figured this would be how it happens. Now, granted, now that I'm thinking about it, Walker, well, no, because that's Amanda Waller. I don't know. I don't know who Walker's supposed to be, but it definitely seems like she's got her own agenda, and maybe they're trying to just essentially take out all the evil in Gotham so they can take over themselves, which is kind of weird because that would make sense. But for Jim, that means, I don't know, essentially giving over the city to the army. And on top of that, apparently, it seems like whoever this Walker person is apparently willing to sacrifice innocence to make it seem like, oh, well, see, we got to do something. See, a whole building full of a bunch of innocent civilians blew up. We need to go in now. But she was kind of the one that, I guess, set that off by putting the chip in Edward's head and making him do it. So, kind of interesting to see that. I thought it was going to be something maybe a little bit more intricate with Strange messing with his personalities or something. But no, just simple chip in the head, press a button, and now you're controlling him. So, that's all it was. Okay. I will say, it does now make sense why him getting hit on the back of the head and getting electrocuted at the beginning of this episode. It makes sense why that is what caused him to remember what's going on, because those hits to the head and the electrocution fried the chip, so they at least explain that away. I will say I did not expect us to actually see Ed's head getting opened and the chip getting worked on, but that was a rather grisly scene to pop up. But yeah, a lot of really interesting things. Don't know what's going on with Penguin, with his whole. He goes into what looks like a bunker and there's a ton of stuff in there. So I don't know what's going on there. He says time for a change of scenery. No clue. Um, but yeah, I'm liking where the story's going. It does seem like Jeremiah is involved somehow because we see Strange has apparently been working with him to reconstruct his, either make his parents' faces so they can be on other people's bodies or bring his parents back to life. Because I assume these are his parents. We didn't actually see them, but he's like, I love family reunions, so that's where my brain goes. Um, but yeah, I would assume since Jeremiah was having Strange do this stuff for him, that he probably also asked Strange to put the chip in Ed's head, maybe working with this Walker person, or I don't know. I don't know the whole picture, but I've definitely got enough of a picture to where I want the pieces filled in. I want to know how a lot of this stuff was put into place. Honestly, I'm glad that a lot of these questions are getting answered. Not all of them, but at least enough to where I don't have these nagging, like, why doesn't Ed remember getting stabbed last season? Why doesn't he remember Lee stabbing him and he stabbing Lee? Why doesn't he remember any of that? Well, now we know it's because whatever Strange did, I guess, wiped those memories. Because the last thing he remembers is, I don't know, I guess, I don't even think he remembers being stabbed. He just remembers Oswald standing over him saying, I'll save you. So, or I'll fix you. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm glad some of these questions are finally getting answers. Bruce and Selina's story does seem a little bit on the outside right now. It's fine because I don't mind what they're doing with it. I feel like they're giving us some good character moments between the both of them because we are seeing Selina, what this root has done to her is essentially brought out the dark side of her, and she's perfectly fine with that now. She's like, no, this is who I am. This is who I've always been, and we know that's not necessarily true. And it does sort of build up to the fact that we've seen in other iterations of Batman, there's always that kind of Batman wants to keep Selina out of the life of crime. He wants to show her to the light, and he wants to make her a better person. So I think this is showing how a lot of that starts, showing how much he cares for Selina and how much he believes in her. So I like those story beats. I will say I wish they were a little bit more connected to our main story. But seeing that apparently Jeremiah wanted her to stab him to make it seem like, oh, you've killed me. I will say, I don't know. I get that that's part of his plan, that he was going to get stabbed and then she was going to believe he was dead, and that, I guess, for some reason he wanted that. Don't know why. But how did he know? How did he know he wasn't going to die? How did he know she wouldn't, go for the throat or go for something more vital? She's like, oh no, I knew she was going to stab me and then I just get stitched up and I'm perfectly fine. And she stabbed him multiple times too. I don't know how she missed all of his major organs, but that is something of a plot hole, but also nobody dies in Gotham, so it is on par for this show. Because, yeah, none of the main characters die. Only the NPCs die. All the main characters are perfectly fine. Even if they die, they respawn, so it's basically a video game at this point. But yeah, no, I'm enjoying the plot twist, though, and I'm enjoying seeing where they're taking it. I will say, I wish we could have gotten a little bit more of Eduardo. He seemed to really have a good connection with Jim, and their chemistry whenever they were acting together and their camaraderie in these scenes. I was really disappointed that we didn't get more of that, so this twist at the end felt a little bit more heartrending for Jim, because it definitely felt like a scene that if we had seen Eduardo maybe previously on Gotham, and I don't know if he actually had been or not, it definitely doesn't seem like that was the case. But I feel like that would have been a really emotional scene if maybe it took a few episodes after Eduardo shows up for us to find out that he was involved with Ed being taken over and being controlled and then blowing up Haven. Because then this moment could have been really much more gut-wrenching. I liken it to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I won't, if you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it. But there is a main cast member in the first season who turns. Now, we don't find out about his turn until way later, but If they had done it like earlier on in the season, or if they had hinted towards it, it would have been a lot less emotional. But we got a whole season of him working with the team, and they're all getting along, and they're all friends. And so that turn at the end really hits you, and it's one that stuck with me. It's probably one of the most emotional plot twists that I've experienced in all my years of watching shows. So I feel like this one could have been maybe handled a little bit better. As it is, it's still fine. It's serviceable. It fits the plot, and it fits along kind of, again, what my mindset was of they're going to go against the military at some point. So maybe they've set all of this up to make it seem like, well, Gotham just needs to be blown up and started over. So it fits. I just, in my mind, I'm picturing another storyline where we don't find it out right away when he shows up, and we have these moments where he and Jim are taking back the streets, they're working together, they're, bringing in Scarecrow, taking out his followers, all of this stuff to really hammer home, like, yeah, they've got it, they're working together, and then we find out later on, oh no, this was all part of their plan. They wanted you to do all of this because they wanted to essentially come in and say, well, look, Jim, this isn't enough. We're just going to start killing them. So I don't know. That's just where my mind took it. But yeah, that's about it for this episode. So I think that's all. Yeah. On to the next one. See you there. Now episode 6, 13 Stitches. So it's weird because I looked up because I wanted to see if Eduardo had shown up in any previous episodes, and that's where I saw his line about Peña. What is it? Peña Dura. And so I assumed he had said it in the last episode, and I forgot that he said it, but no, he says that line in this episode that was entitled Peña Dura. So don't get that. But yeah, apparently it was a prison he was locked in. So I don't understand why last episode was titled that when I don't know if he actually talked about it in the last episode. Anyways, so for the most part, it was good. Some interesting turns along the way. Seeing Ed work with Jim and Lucius and Alfred and Bruce and Barbara. I mean, it was very good setup, and I enjoyed a lot of the moments. So the moments, though, I will talk about that stood out to me as just not as good. First of all, Barbara. Again, I don't mind her character right now. I don't mind how she's helping out, and I don't mind her motivations. The whole thing with her and Jim, though, still a little iffy. And then at the end of this episode, she's like, by the way, I'm pregnant. So she could just be lying because she's spiteful, and she sees Jim has Lee back in his life, and she's like, oh, hell no, we just had a moment, and she's trying to take him back. Which, again, doesn't really make sense based on how I feel like I've interpreted Barbara over the past couple seasons. She didn't really want Jim back. She just wanted to get at him because she felt like, I don't know, she felt like it was her justification for everything that happened, that she got to needle in with these little comments and these little spiteful things thrown his way to get under his skin. I never saw it as like, oh no, I actually want him back. So for her to lie about being pregnant just to kind of split up Jim and Lee doesn't really, I don't know, maybe it does sort of fit, but it just feels weird because I don't think she would be able to tell this early on, because that night literally happened only a few nights ago. So I really doubt that she would be able to tell that she was pregnant after a few days, unless the time span has been a lot longer than they're showing. I feel like it's not been that long, but I could be wrong. We'll see what's going on. The other thing is Jim at the end with Lee. Now, don't get me wrong, him seeing her back, at first probably wouldn't ask a whole lot of questions, but then whenever she talked about how she and Enigma stabbed each other, and then she remembers being in a hospital, I feel like at that point he would have been like, okay, wait. They were both stabbed at the same place. It's a very good chance that they were both taken to see Hugo Strange. Because we know that as the audience. And I am glad that they didn't try to stretch this story out over a few episodes of like, oh crap, guys, she's being controlled too. I mean, obviously she was stabbed at the end of last season and she was with Strange alongside Enigma. So it's a very good chance she's being controlled. I think a lot of us picked up on that as soon as she showed up. So I'm glad that they didn't try to stretch that out and just like, holy crap, they're going to use her and try to kill Jim. So the fact that they wrapped that up at the end of this episode, I'm glad about. However, Jim's reaction hearing that, he instantly turns his back on her. He's like, oh, let me get you, whatever. I'm just like, dude, you just heard that she was with Nigma and she remembered being in a hospital and she seemed like she might be dead. You couldn't connect the dots there? Like, you really don't think they would use Lee to get at you? It just seemed very odd to me. I'm trying to remember. There were a couple other moments just throughout this. Magpie, I will admit, I didn't really like. She's better than the one we saw in Batwoman. 10 times better. She still was really annoying, though. Just not, I don't know. There are certain acting choices like Echo where they're not bad. I personally am just not a fan. And for Magpie in this, same thing. Like, it's not like she was acting poorly like what we, again, with Alice and Batwoman, but it just didn't sit right with me. I didn't really like the choice. So it was just, I don't know. The writing for her wasn't great either. They just didn't give her very interesting lines. So, I mean, the story between her trying to steal from Penguin and what we find out about the fact that he wants to leave Gotham, that is interesting, because it explains what he meant by the end, at the end of last episode about change of scenery. So that is an interesting story, and obviously I don't think that's going to happen, but it is kind of interesting that that's what he wants to do. Is essentially he's like, you know what, I'm done. I'm done here. Way too much crap going on. I'm out. It fits within his character though, because deep down, even though he's intelligent and he's willing to, to fight to an extent, there is still that side of him that's very much a coward. And so in this situation, faced with the fact that the army is going to come down hard and try to kill him, his option is, you know what, I'm just going to leave. I'm gone. Peace out. So that is kind of within character as well. But yeah, seeing Selena join him and seeing how dark she's gotten, I do feel like we're going to have a little bit of redemption for her by the end of it. Because the Catwoman that we see later, and obviously I do have to say all of this with a grain of salt, because there is a chance that a lot of those stories are going to be changed based on what the show does. But, I mean, this could be a completely different story that it's leading to. But the Catwoman that we've seen in other iterations was never really much of a cold-blooded killer and like a hardened, like, don't mess with me or I'll cut your fingers off type of criminal. She was always just a cat burglar, basically, pun intended. So to see that she's gone this far down the path makes me think that Bruce is going to find a way to at least win some of her humanity back by the end of it. Because I wasn't really sure. I wasn't sure if this is sort of where the story ended for her. Just essentially she gets her walking back because of this little route that Ivy gave her. But it does open up this other side of her that basically turns her into a bit more of a criminal. But we're seeing that it's a lot more than just that. She's really gone off the deep end. So I don't know how that's all going to play out, but I assume that's probably where that story is going. Jim and Eduardo, again, we saw some good connections in this, and it makes me wish we could have gotten more backstory before his turn, because, yeah, a lot of the dialogue in this was really good. Seeing that Jim blames Eduardo for a lot of stuff that happened because he's very reckless. Eduardo blames Jim because, his sense of duty left them behind. And on top of that, he blames Jim for what happened at Haven because they were about to win over the people in the government to go help, but then Jim manages to turn everything around. So in our minds, it's a great thing, but from Eduardo's point of view, he's like, we almost had them convinced and you had to go and show them, no, one man can handle it, so the crime isn't bad enough to send in a team to take out all the criminal elements. So this Walker woman changed that. And yeah, I mean, it makes her more interesting. I'll admit, don't really know how I feel about her yet. I don't know, her delivery at the end felt a little weird. It feels like, because she sounded a lot more normal over the radio, so it feels like whenever they showed her in person, they were like, okay, well now we need to show that you're evil, so now put on more of an evil inflection whenever you talk. And it just made it sound weird, because she was talking normally, but then whenever she showed up in person, she started talking a lot more... What's his name? Dang it. I was going to end that perfectly with whatever the guy's name that played Shatner. She started feeling a little bit more Shatner with some weird pauses and some weird drawn out words. I don't know. It just seemed like they were decided, okay, we want you to sound more like a villain now, so start talking more like a villain. And it was just, I didn't like that. I felt it was more normal whenever she just sounded like somebody who got the job done. She was evil. She clearly wants something out of this. We still don't know what, but I preferred that feeling of no, she's just in charge and this is what she wants and she's gonna do it. Much more military sounding rather than supervillain like Jeremiah. So yeah, a little weird. Hopefully it gets better or goes back to what it was before, but we'll see. Apparently Eduardo. I don't know if Eduardo was the name of Bane in the comics or I don't know if other people heard Eduardo and they're like, oh, he's gonna be Bane. I didn't know that, but yeah, that mask at the end very clearly. I mean, it just looked like Bane, and then she turns it on. He's like, Jim Gordon. I'm gonna miss Tom Hardy though. Just it doesn't get better than Tom Hardy. It doesn't. But yeah, I mean, all of that stuff very interesting moving forward. Obviously, we've got Enigma now helping out the team, so that'll be fun to watch. Don't know what's going on with Jeremiah. Again, I don't know how much he's connected to what Walker is doing, but I feel like he's got to have a little bit of connection. And we don't know what happened at the end of last episode talking to his parents or whatever. Don't see what that amounted to, but we have Alfred. So the only theory that I have in my mind right now is he's got his parents back. And now he's got a butler. So there's the theory that's in my mind is he's going to try to turn Bruce into his brother and basically try to live out their lives as a happy family living in this posh mansion with a butler. I don't know if that makes any sense, and I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I hope we get some more answers as to what Jeremiah's been doing this whole time. Digging this tunnel. I don't know. It's just very, very odd at the moment. Which, I mean, fits his character, but it's left me with a lot more questions than answers. So I'm hoping we get some of those questions soon. Now, we are halfway through the season, because it was a shorter season. It's only 12 episodes. So I feel like within the next 3, I think we're going to get more of what the end game is leading towards. Because, I mean, they've got to wrap up the show. I think they knew going in that this was their last season. So I feel like they went in with the idea of we're telling this story and it's going to have a conclusion and it's going to lead towards... I mean, I think the title... Because they have, like, their title for the half of the season or whatever. I'm pretty sure the title for this one was The Legend of the Dark Knight, if I'm not mistaken. I'll look it up later. So I feel like they have a point that they're leading towards. I wonder when we're going to reach that moment of, oh, okay, so this is what it's all building towards. This is that fight that we saw at the beginning of the season against the army. This is how we get there. Because honestly, I was assuming that it was going to be Walker and her team just attack, but now that she's in Gotham and she's been exposed, now I don't know how it leads to the army attacking Gotham. So a lot of, I guess, plot points to explore between now and the end of the season. So I'm excited. It's been very good so far. Yeah, I mean, especially after watching those CW shows, it just feels good to get something that's not only well written and not only well acted, but also fun and enjoyable. And yeah, it's a good show. So that's about all I have. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 3 episodes? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe, future Gotham reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.